one of the things that many of you noticed in your Zoltan Dean's papers was the fact that Piaget and Zoltan Dean's often had markedly different ideas about what students could and could not do. And I think one of the things we can do to show this is that in Piaget's world, each child had to individually construct every piece of information for themselves in order for it to be meaningful. That's what's meant by a constructivist approach. Zoltan is much more of a social constructivist, and this is a minor point to many, but it's extremely important. I believe I can show you what implication this might have. Let's imagine that we start with some counters. I have selected 4 counters so that it would be larger than what subitizing and chunking could immediately take care of. Let's say that we arrange these 4 counters and spread them out like this. And as we spread them out, what we will do is we'll notice that we tried to fill up the whole screen as much as possible. Now we'll put 4 more counters down, and we will arrange them so that they're close together. A typical Piagetian task right now would be to ask a young child which is larger. And almost inevitably, the child would select the group of counters that are spread out as representing a larger amount. This really isn't as profound as we might expect, however, because what it establishes is that we can fool students. Let us imagine that we go along with Zoltan, a more social constructivist perspective. What Zoltan would say is very similar to what we have done in our class, and that is that when we have put our counters down, let's always arrange them in the same way. Left to right, top to bottom. If we ask the young child now the same question, which is larger, they'll probably laugh and say, well, it's the same thing. I can see that. It's the exact same size. So what Piaget in essence has shown is less a cognitive artifact in relation to number, at least in this situation, as it is that it's possible to fool children. I don't think that's overly profound in a math education classroom. I think we would much rather have students develop concepts that are generalizable and transferable to other areas. Now, look what happens with Zoltan. Zoltan is this social interaction where there's this dynamic between the teacher and the student, and together they come up with representations that are meaningful to both. Hopefully this sounds a little bit familiar to you. It should sound like Vygotsky's notions. And when you go through your Understanding the Learner course and your educational psychology readings, Vygotsky's notions on social interaction would lead us to this place where it's not necessary that everyone has every single experience, but it is necessary that there's a social dynamic where representations of meaning are created that can be standard, that can be universal, and can be used in general. This is a huge difference in terms of the math classroom. We don't have time in the mathematics classroom to reconstruct all 6,000 years of mathematics. Instead, what we do is we try to create experiences with well-understood objects, well-understood actions, leading to representations that are understood and understandable by all students, not just a privileged few.